get into it. And we're starting, folks. We are also starting our live stream on Facebook Live and also on YouTube and then also on Twitter. But this portion of the program, PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, beautiful selection: pansies, pansy flats, pansy bags, hangers and bowls, assorted colors, tulips, hyacinths, daffodils, hydrangeas, colors available: blue, white, and pink. They carry landscape materials, screen loom, black, brown, hemlock, mulch, crushed stone. Look for them on Facebook. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. They're open 7 days a week. Shop local, locally owned and operated. Folks, there they are, PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. And what I like about them is the fact that, good. And I know we had some problems with the live stream on the website. We had some minor problems last hour, but they are corrected. Now they are corrected on this Monday. So I know a lot of people, sometimes, well, not a lot, but some people like to listen. Or maybe wherever you live, that's the only place you can listen on the website, but we do have it straightened out. So, folks, again, it's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. Again, good afternoon to everybody tuning in on Facebook. Folks, as always, visit the website, depetro.com. We'll have a story going up in just a little while regarding the situation that Bud Craddock, who this is, I mean, he is, you can't be more politically connected than old man Craddock, who was at that press conference with Governor McKee just 2 weeks ago on the whole license plate situation. But we're going to have a story up on the website about it at depetro.com. And don't forget, depetro.com, which is brought to you by End Zone Sports Pub, 960 Menden Road in Cumberland. They'll be rocking tonight with the Celtics. The Celtics may sweep Brooklyn tonight. Catch all the action. Dana and Company, End Zone Sports Pub, 960 Menden Road in Cumberland. So I want to, and this is all just kind of coming down now. This is, it's kind of interesting what's happening right now because there's a big story in the Boston Globe, how where they talk about how there are those that are trying to get prostitution legalized again in Rhode Island. But this is just breaking now. So we're going to talk to Joanne G coming up in just a little bit. But Attorney General Nerona has ended his investigation into Walter Bud Craddock, concluding they didn't have enough evidence to charge him with a crime tied to an alleged sex for pay operation of one of his rental properties. So no charges for Craddock. Now, what I don't understand about that is he's announcing Bud Craddock will not face charges over the alleged sex to pay operation, one of his rental properties. Said it's still had serious questions about his judgment. Well, folks, the thing about this, though, about Craddock is this was not the first time. This was not the first time, in fact, that he, was caught renting to one of those investigations, or one of those, I should say, not the first time. Oh, here it is. All right, so it just came down. Attorney General concludes review investigation of Walter Craddock. Detailed summary of the officer review in a letter to the Rhode Island State Police. All right, let me pull this up. So I just received the email, and let me, I want to pull it up, folks. We have a lot of news on this Monday. Again, remember, we're live until 2 o'clock. I want to pull this up because I even question, I mean, the state police thoroughly investigated this. I don't know why it's taking so long. My God, the Wi-Fi problems that for some reason that we experience here is just mind-blowing. So let me, I may even reach out and see if we can get Attorney General Peter Nerona. Okay, here we go. April 25th. So, dear Colonel Manny, Cranston Police investigation. This was in May and June of last year. Commercial sex activity, 1732 Broad Street. Blah, blah, blah. One of them owned by Walter Bud Craddock and his wife, sole owners. Once the Cranston Police investigation became public and it became known Craddock was the landlord, Governor McKee asked the state police to investigate. State police concluded in October no evidence hid any criminal liability in connection with the activities taking place. On or about October 15th, state police requested the Office Attorney General review its investigation of Craddock. So, all right, it's only 7 pages. The evidence collected showed that between 2017 2021, 3 separate actions took place first floor unit. 2 of the 3 concerned suspected prostitution, 1 related to a drug investigation. So it's owned by these 4 buildings, blah, blah, blah. Let me skip down just a little bit. They informed him of his tenant offering illegal massages without a license. The financial investigator interviewed Craddock at his law office of McLaughlin Quinn. His attorney was also present. He recanted his background, 25-year veteran of the Cranston Police Department. Craddock was a patrol officer, member of the SWAT team, narcotics, deputy chief, and then chief. Retired in 2002. Became a member of the Rhode Island Bar, private practice for joining New York. All right, let's get into all of that. He confirmed they signed a lease in February 2019 through January 31st. Following the expiration, then they were month to month. The annual rent is listed at $1,125 a month. And the lease was signed by Bud Craddock and Lynn Craddock. He believed the first floor was used as a foot flex reflexology. No evidence any business by that name having a license to practice massage. That's interesting. So during the pandemic, the rent was paid directly deposited to his bank account, starting during the pandemic. So then he's saying, well, I wasn't even seeing them or dealing with them. During the pandemic, he began to personally collect his monthly rent payment from the first floor tenant. Hold on. He further stated, prior to the pandemic, it was paid directly to his bank account. During the pandemic, he started collecting it in cash every month. Craddock stated he typically collected the rent from the steps leading up to the back door of the unit, though he admitted entering the unit, counting the rent on the kitchen table several occasions. He never encountered any customers inside the apartment. Notably, Craddock did not explain why he chose to change his practice and personally collect the rent money during COVID-19 pandemic. Common sense would dictate one would want less, not more personal interaction. Likewise, the interview report did not indicate whether he collected the rent from any other tenant. The state police did not provide the office with any financial records for Craddock. That's odd. He stated he did not receive complaints about them. He first learned there was criminal activity on June 17th with the search warrant. The colonel contacted him, said there was an arrest on the property. He was shown a photo of the woman arrested. He said he didn't recognize her. Craddock was asked about, this is Bud Craddock, DMV, about the condition of the apartment. In fact, the windows were covered with garbage bags. He stated it was assumed to keep the light out. He was not aware the state police executed a search warrant on the premises in 2020. Craddock did recall there was damage to the front door, but he claimed he never learned the cause of the damage. It was forceful entry by the police. He hired a handyman to repair the door. He denied any knowledge of the 2017 investigation. A couple of connection with the fire alarm. He never advised him of any red flags. Craddock showed investigators a termination of tenancy letter by certified mail on June 21st. So that would be 4 days after the raid. State police unsuccessfully attempted to interview this woman about the activity. It also doesn't say why he lied when asked if he knew her. State police interviewed the tenant of the basement apartment. He suspected there was prostitution taking part because a lot of white guys were walking in and out. He never reported a suspicion of the Cranston Police Department. The basement tenant stated he paid his rent by dropping off a check at Bank of Rhode Island every month. So certainly a lot of unanswered questions here. So The Attorney General, though, they're not going to prosecute Craddock. Additionally, there's little doubt the first floor was a common nuisance. What is lacking, however, is sufficient evidence to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that Craddock had actual knowledge the location was used for this purpose. It appears that they were notified, that neither the realty or Craddock were notified about the suspected illegal activity following 2017. No evidence he was notified of suspected drug trafficking. No direct evidence he knew of any illegal activity taking place there. There were certain information presented suggests there were multiple red flags should have given Craddock pause regarding the nature of the business operated by the first floor tenant. For example, there was no official record of a business registered at the location, no massage license displayed inside the unit, no business name on the exterior of the building or door, an interior surveillance camera, and garbage bags taped over the windows. These are not the trappings of a legitimate commercial operation. Additionally, it appears that this business paid its rent in cash. As Craddock admitted being inside the unit multiple times, there's little doubt he was aware of the general appearance of the building from inside and outside. Given his law enforcement background, he had likely had reason to suspect this was not a legitimate commercial enterprise. The officer also noted some of Craddock's answers to the state police strained on credibility. For instance, his statement that he began to collect rent in person from this tenant during the pandemic makes little sense. If nothing else, the pandemic prompted most people to have fewer personal interactions rather than more. His statement to investigators that he believed the plastic bags taped over the window, compared to more typical window treatment, were to keep light out as opposed to prevent someone from observing the activity within, then he never learned why the broken door down, and curious at best. Regarding the critical issue of whether he had knowledge of the criminal commercial sexual activity on Broad Street, there's ample smoke. However, beyond the reasonable doubt standard to these facts, there's insufficient evidence to establish fire. Craddock should have known or must have known commercial sexual activity was going on is not the standard his office must meet. Rather, we must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did know. And the evidence presented to us by the Rhode Island police, that is not possible. There's been no record witness electronic could establish beyond a reasonable doubt. Please do not hesitate. That is Attorney General Peter Nerona. Now, again, I will reach out to them. I don't know what to make of that whole thing. So the whole thing is very, very suspicious, to say the very least. And in light of the fact of this Boston Globe very explosive story about that there are some, and again, folks, good afternoon. You're listening or watching the John DePietro Show. It's AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. We're going to speak with Joanne G coming up in just a little bit, but it is not, I mean, it just doesn't stand to reason. The Craddock thing, we can only speculate. Why did he suddenly say, I'll come in person and collect the money? Why was he, that doesn't make sense. So the door is knocked down by the Cranston police, and he has no idea or doesn't even curious, gee, what happened to the door? You go inside, there's plastic bags taped over the windows. He never thinks, why do there's no sign. They don't have a business license. Gee, why do they have plastic bags taped over the windows? Doesn't think to ask that. He even admits he was going inside. All of it, folks. This portion of the program, now remember, the grilling season is here. For your grill, if you need a new grill or want to check out, here's the thing. Maybe you just want to see, what's in the market right now for grills. Stop it and see my friends Jay's, letter J, Jay's Broadway Appliance and TV, 47 Cedar Swamp Road, Route 5 in Smithfield. Family run, family operated. They've been doing this since 1963. You deal directly with the owners. Why not a brand new grill? And remember, they'll match or beat when it comes to appliances. They'll match or beat any package deal. Their hours are Monday through Friday from 10 to 5, Saturday and Sunday by appointment. Look for them on Facebook, and then they also have a great website. It's letter J, JSappliance.com. It's grill time. Stop it and see them. Easy parking right down the street from Apple Valley. We were there. The protesters were there on Saturday. You can also find them on Facebook. Jay's Broadway Appliance and TV. What I like is you can drive right there and you deal directly with the owners. So, folks, again, good afternoon. It's John DePietro on AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. So there is, folks, check out the website. We'll have some things on this Bud Craddock investigation. This just seems very, very suspicious to me. And it even seems suspicious to the Attorney General. It seems to me that without knowing all the details, that he purposely did not want to know what was going on in one of his rental unions, let alone the fact that he's the former chief of police in Cranston. So it's very interesting, especially the part he suddenly decided to go and start collecting in person. And he went up the back door to do it. And what was going on inside. Also, when the police showed him a photo of the woman he had been dealing with, he claimed he didn't know who she was. That's another interesting point. Folks, this portion of the John DePietro Show brought to you by Lawn Doctor. Hey, now is the time. Get your lawn in order for the spring. Call them 401-392-1025. The easiest thing to do, though, is go on their website and get a free quote. You just put in your zip code. Quick, easy quote, Lawn Doctor. And now is the time. Early spring, they do spring lime, late spring, time-release fertilizer. They also do high calcium lime, crabgrass control, tick and mosquitoes. They do grub prevention. Then they come back in the summertime. It's a full program. Your best lawn ever, guaranteed. Lawn Doctor and Lawn Doctor of Rhode Island, but the website is lawndoctor.com. I want to pull up, the Boston Globe has a good piece. We're going to talk to Joanne G. What's interesting is these progressives that are trying to go ahead with legalizing prostitution in Rhode Island and making prostitution legal in Rhode Island. It's a huge out-of-state money push. But what's also really interesting about this is it's the progressives that are doing it. And even in the Globe, this delusional idea by Cynthia Mendez, who's running for lieutenant governor, to be stating that, oh no, this way they can unionize and young women should have a right to do this with their body. Folks, read the story. We're going to be joined by Joanne G, the former state rep who pushed to close the loophole in 2009. She's alarmed by this recent proposal. So, but this guy comes in from the outside, and the story is, it's rough. And the fact that this is going on in Cranston Street, and there's drugs, and there's abuse, and there's sex trafficking. And guess who's backing the bill? Anastasia Williams, Kat Kerwin, Rachel Miller. The bill never emerged. Boom, boom, boom. But then they talk about this Cynthia Mendez. It's weird how the progressives, they never address the fact they want to decriminalize sex work. And for this, the Rhode Island Political Cooperative, they're championing this. Senator Tiara Mack, she also wants to make it legal. State Senator Cynthia Mendez, who's running for lieutenant governor. I mean, she is even talking about, and so people were so horrified, they all went up to the State House to testify. But the progressives are the one leading the charge on this. And Mendez says that what could happen is that all of the women involved with sex work could be labor unions get involved. And so they could have collective bargaining rights and the Globe rights. It's hard to imagine what collective bargaining would look like on Cranston Street. There's no way to negotiate with a needle or a fist. My God. So great story by Amanda Milkovich of the Boston Globe, who was out dealing with these different advocacy groups that go out there. But folks, this is the progressives are all over this and trying to push for it. And Matt calls it a victimless crime that some people rely on to survive, and it would make communities more safe, protect this class of individuals. Mendes wants to abolish all laws prohibiting commercial sex and said, watch out for fear mongering. Focus on those who choose to engage in sex work voluntarily. But, this story that they talk about, the human trafficking and there's drugs and these women, it takes them years to try to get over it. By the way, it's also there's young men out there as well. But this business, that's a great line. Hard to imagine what collective bargaining would look like on Cranston Street. No way to negotiate with a needle or a fist. So, this is just another example how the progressives in what they, seek out. And all right, she's I believe joining us right now, folks. She is a former state rep and has really been a champion on this cause. And it is Joanne G. Good afternoon, Joanne G.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm very well. Good afternoon, Joanne. Joanne, first of all, I very clearly remember that you were very active, and really, you were the one leading the charge that got the loophole closed in 2009. So, if you could just start off by telling us the fact that the loophole was closed in 2009. What is your reaction to hear that there are actually individuals that are trying to bring it back now?
Well, I was very disheartened to hear that they were trying to bring it back. To quote, what they're trying to do is decriminalize prostitution, and that would open the floodgates for all, make it a safe haven again for all of the sex trafficking and prostitution and the exploitation of women, children, and even young boys.
Yes. It's amazing, Joanne. And again, I'm just curious. It's, your reaction. I think the Boston Globe story where you're mentioned, and just the reaction of some of the progressives of, victimless crime, and this is between adults, and also, how about this Cynthia Mendes saying, well, through collective bargaining, they could have a better arrangement for themselves.
Well, John, first of all, a lot of them, some of them may not have even been in this state when all this was happening.
Yeah.
I mean, this goes back to, we go back to the 80s with this, when the loophole was made by mistake by former Maddie Smith, Speaker Maddie Smith, who he cracked down on outdoor prostitution.
Right.
But when he did that, he eliminated the indoor part, and that's what formed the loophole.
That's right. So, and I just want people to understand the loophole. Right. The way it became formed was the law stated that there was to be no solicitation outside. So what that opened was all of these illegal, quote, spas with the body massages and the happy endings. So as long as it was taking place inside, under Rhode Island law, it was considered legal.
Right.
Yes.
And they didn't find out about that till they tried to try a case of illegal brothels that were being massage parlors, and then it was ruled out of court.
Right.
So a lot of these people that are putting these bills in, they're a lot younger than me, and some may not have been in Rhode Island. Some might have been, in diapers when this was happening.
Sure.
They don't know the history.
I don't know about diapers, Joey, only because 2009. That would be 13 years ago. So,
but I'm talking about
here's the thing. I understand you're trying to give them an out, but the fact of the matter is there's seemingly a pattern now.
I'm not trying to give them an out.
Well, okay.
I feel like this. I'm going to be very clear.
Okay.
I feel that if you're going to make a law like this or change a law like
Yes.
this, you need to do your homework.
Exactly. Yeah.
You need to find out why the law was made. You
In the
need
first
to
place.
contact the sponsors or
Yep.
the people in, and let's not forget the victims.
Yes.
You know, the victims were totally left out of this. Their say was totally left out.
Now, Joanne, you've listened to the testimony of some of the victims, and
Yeah,
I think
watched it.
it's notable in the Boston Globe story by Amanda Milkovich. What I find interesting is the proponents of it. They never address or acknowledge the victims.
The victims.
Never.
I know.
It's like they put them off to, and by the way, the big proponents of this are women, right?
I know.
Tiara Mack and Cynthia Mendez.
Yeah.
This attitude that they have in Providence, Kat Kerwin, Rachel Miller, you know, this is not a matter of some insensitive men. These are women. They're younger women. They have this mindset of, you know, hey, it's my body and my choice and victimless crime, and you know, they can unionize, but it's you know what, Joanne, it sounds very naive compared to some of the testimony you've listened to from victims.
You know, the testimony, the committee, I watched everything, and the committee was very upset with when they heard the testimony. They were very moved by it, and
yes.
Many spoke out. Senator Archambault spoke out, Senator Raptakis, they spoke out, and I believe Dela Cruz spoke out. They spoke out and said that, you know, they could never support this,
right?
In so many words, you know, and that they were very, very cordial to the victims, who, I have to say, John, when I started this in 2006, the victims never came forward.
Wow.
What has changed now? What has changed in 2022 is that the victims have united, and they decided, we're not going to take this anymore.
Wow.
We're going to fight back.
Huh.
But no one would come forward. We were telling their stories for them.
Yes.
They were afraid to come, afraid
wow.
for their, you know, lives and everything. But I mean, I have to give Amanda
yes.
the greatest
tremendous
praise.
Joanne, without getting, and again, folks, we're speaking with Joanne G and Eddie. Joanne, without getting too graphic, but just, you know, for someone, just if you could lay out a little bit of the details, especially what I like is Amanda brought it home. This is Cranston Street. This is going on right in Providence. It's really not even that far from the Rhode Island State House. This is not glamorous. These are not women united saying our bodies, our choice.
No.
These are people. There is fear, there is violence, there is drugs, there is manipulation, there is terror. They're treated, you know, at times worse than animal. There's nothing. It's just the lowest form. You hate to even think about that it's going on, but what's more frightening is the fact that they're trying to legalize it.
Right, and let's not forget, this all started by a front page article in 2006 in the Providence Journal, where the Asian girls were sleeping on a floor.
Yes.
There were like 9 or 10 of them.
Yeah.
Some of them they were physically had sores on their mouth, okay? Yeah. Cooking over a sterno.
Yeah.
And at the time, the police raided, and they tried, you know, these were Asian girls, and they had nowhere to go. They were brought in and promised like a life of being a model.
Right.
And they were kept like sex slaves.
Yes.
And at the time, when they discovered that this was legal, I was called by Colonel Doherty of the state police, because he knew I'd been working on the issue, and asked, please put that bill in again. And you know, I did, and I kept putting it in, and it took 3-4 years.
Wow.
For it to go through.
Yeah.
And it was a set of 3 bills, John. It wasn't just closing the indoor prostitution bill. It was a whole set of human trafficking laws, and also a law to ban minors 14 and 15-year-old girls working in the strip club.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Being
Terrible.
they were runaways, and they were given drugs, and then they were being prostituted.
Yes.
So, I mean, there was one girl. I mean, some of the cases came right out of my own neighborhood in Mount Pleasant. And one girl on River Avenue, she was advertising on Craigslist.
I remember that story.
Remember that?
She was murdered.
Murdered.
Yes.
She had a little baby.
Yes. Remember, she would have her mother watch the child, and it was just sad. You know, she would say to the mother, I need some time. So some nut went to her apartment, and she thinks it's just going to be whatever, a half hour, and then he killed her in the apartment. I remember that.
And then, John, we had the Craigslist killer.
I remember that. Yeah, they caught him.
Warwick.
That was down at I remember that story as well, right off Jefferson Boulevard.
Right, and you know, thank God for Colonel McCartney, who came forth and told at the State House, and you know, told the story and said, "This has got to stop.
Yes,
we can't have this." So, I mean, I also have to give credit to the late, you know, Mrs. Kacheri.
Yes,
because I was home one day. And I got a phone call from her staff saying, "Would you hold for Mrs. Kacheri?" And she said to me, and I'll never forget it, she said, "I see you struggling all alone with this, and I want you to know that I told my husband this will not be his legacy, and I am going to come to the press conference." And she did.
Wow. Think of that.
I mean, he came out full force. I mean, Pat, I have to say, you know, no one does this alone. He came out full force.
Yeah, he
Governor
did.
Kacheri.
I remember.
So did former Attorney General Patrick Lynch.
Yes.
Came out full force, and Brendan, as I said, Brendan Doherty and Colonel McCartney. And, you know, there were a lot of people that were afraid to come out. You know, they were afraid to come out. But
Joanne, I just want to focus. And again, in the Boston Globe, we're speaking with Joanne G, the former rep. She's really the one led the charge to close the loophole. But according to the Globe, in March, last month, Providence Senator Tiara Mack introduced a bill, second time, decriminalize prostitution, making it a civil penalty, fines akin to a traffic ticket. A second bill, sponsored by East Providence Senator, Lieutenant Governor candidate Cynthia Mendez, aims to abolish laws prohibiting commercial sex. That one was then Jeannie Calkins, co-chair of the Rhode Island Political Cooperative, sponsor of both. But Joanne, I even like, and sometimes, you know, the local media, I find they're very forgiving. It's tough to find where they're critical of some of these progressives. But even in the Globe, they mention the fact that even though you have victims testifying, and some of they called, you know, the survivors together with love, where they try to, you know, help these young women. They reach out to these young women. They go out there at night, try to reach out to them, try to help them get off the street. But even the Globe is kind of calling out the fact that these progressives, they will not acknowledge. It's like they don't want to look at them. They won't acknowledge the victims.
And I want to make one point perfectly clear. If they want to have a commission or they want to do something, why don't they make laws that help these women so they don't go into a life like this?
Yeah.
Why are you going to condone it and say that this is the best that women can do, or young boys? And let's be fair, John.
Oh, there's a lot of that.
So
there's a lot of that.
What you want to do, if they want to put in a bill for services or educate or something to help these women so that they don't have this type of life. And truthfully, I did put in a bill for those services, and it didn't get passed because of the fiscal. They said it had a fiscal impact and it was a mandate. And what we needed to do was to have that so that these people, these young people, and a lot of them were young. You know, it's not the sex worker that goes out there and she takes care of herself. We're talking about the victims, the people that are taken advantage of. There's one girl in there, Robin Levesia, that told their story. That's the typical story. Yeah. Okay, they get taken in, you know, and then they can't get out. And so if they want to do something to help them, not to encourage the pimps and give the pimps and the madams a free pass.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. They're giving them a free pass.
And Joanne, and again, folks, we're speaking with former state rep Joanne G, who's mentioned in the Boston Globe story, but I just remember who was a big advocate of this. She helped close the loophole. She was leading the charge. Joanne, what a lot of people don't realize, and part of it is it's such the underbelly of society, but I remember there was this guy from Brockton, and he was, a man in his 30s, and he was basically a pimp, and he would bring sometimes as young as 14 years old or 16 years old, and they're runaways, and they are afraid of him, and he would bring them to that place that's now closed, but Cheaters on Allen's Avenue, and he would enter with his 2 or 3 girls, and they would earn him money for the night, and then you have, as you said, you have these Asian women that are basically like indentured servants. Like they're told, you can come to America, but you got to pay off the debt first. And they would move them around all over the place. I mean, it's just horrible, the number of, customers that they would have to have during the course of a day and week, and all, as you say, all sleep together and treated. They were really treated as prisoners. And even,
they were,
on Broad Street in Cranston, where they, the Cranston police raided, they mentioned how, all the women would arrive each morning in a van, and they are prisoners, as a matter of fact. So I don't know how the progressives, think that, well, what they need to do is they choose to enter this, and they can have collective bargaining rights. And I'll tell you, Joanne, they're living in it. These progressives are living in a fantasy world.
There is, these women would have no rights when they enter that
God,
life.
no.
Their life is not their own.
No.
And the sad part is that some people believe and that it's their right. It's not. It's your right if you have a will over what you're doing with your body. But we're talking about people being forced, and it's not just sex. It's also forced labor. They're forced here for other issues too.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, they want to have a study commission, but there's a study commission, and it's to as Amanda mentioned, it's all one-sided. It doesn't have any of the victims on it.
No.
It doesn't have any of the groups on it that are familiar with this.
They don't want to hear it. They don't. That's not a study commission. That's that's an agenda. That's they want a certain outcome. So they're not even.
I hope that there are enough of people, and I think there are in the legislature, and from what I saw in that Senate Judiciary Committee that spoke up, that will not pass these bills and not see through this and see that there is an agenda and there is someone with big bucks behind this. It's not the average sex worker. I can tell you.
Not.
You know that.
Yeah, it's outside money, and that guy is a nut, and he has different people that would fund it. But I think, and before we let her go, folks, and again, with me is Joanne G, former state rep, who's done so much good work. But one thing that is concerning that's to watch now, I give credit. There's no way Senate President Dominic Ruggiero wouldn't allow something like this.
No.
But Joanne, that progressive collaborative, if they get control of the State House, and you don't know if they do, in fact, let's just say, take over the Senate, or what if Mendez became lieutenant governor, or a lot of times they view some of these bills as trying to just move the ball down the field. Like, we may not get it this time, but we're going to go a little bit farther, and then we may not get it next time, but we're going to move it farther and get more people along the way. This is one of those things that they may not say we're going to get it this year, but I'd be willing to bet that they're thinking 3 to 4 years from now, boom, this is what they could capitalize on and get this passed.
You know what, John? That's up to the people of Rhode Island.
You're right.
When they vote.
Yeah.
I mean, people have to pay attention when they vote. And as I said, I was accused of, this wasn't easy bill for me to do. I was accused of stopping women from making a living.
I remember.
Are you
Yes.
kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, I had mothers call me and thank me because their daughters were runaways.
Yes.
And you know, there were stories. I have plenty of stories
I know.
to tell.
I'm sure.
But you know, I think that in the end, for the victims coming forward this time, and what the story that Amanda wrote and the testimony at the State House, I think these bills will not pass. And if they do, the people just won't elect the people that vote for them.
Yeah. And Joanne, you know, finally, this is one of those things that I just wonder, you know, you were a legislator, that part of it is you have to be open, you have to take testimony from both sides.
Right.
You can't, they are so agenda driven. And you know, and I actually, Anastasia Williams is one of those saying this is depriving women of color from earning a living. I think of that woman in your district and the girl's mother, who was the baby's grandmother, saying, you know, listen, this is a way, she just has these short dates with these men. It's a way to earn extra money, but it's so unsavory. You don't know who you're dealing with. And then it cost her a life. The guy, I remember that. He went in there and killed her. It's terrible.
And then there were the first two cases, federal cases for traffickers. They were from Elmhurst, the two men.
Yep.
They were two young guys in their 20s, and they found out about the loophole, and they moved here from New York.
See?
And they were taking girls 15 years old from New York here and prostituting them out of an apartment in Elmhurst. How about that?
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many stories.
They do it under the guise of, you know, you're going to be a model someday. We just got to work with you. You'll be an actress.
Right.
And then, you know, drugs enter the picture, and people need to understand, like, that's why this Mendez you're talking about, they are brutalized, they are physically beaten, they're raped. I mean, it's brutal. It takes them a long time to try to get their life together, to escape out of this. But the bottom line is, Joanne, where you're right on the money is if you allow this, that is the type of crowd that you kind of invite into your state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we talk about Providence. We want it to make a comeback. It's my home. You know?
Right.
I want it to be you know, a good place.
Yeah.
I don't want, no one wants to have, you know, I have business people calling me that were next to these spas. I want it to be a place where people are safe and, if you know, feel comfortable.
Right.
And you don't want that. And most of these cases were in Providence. And one other point, John, that's very valid. Not one victim of all of this trafficking testified for making this legal.
Think of that. Well, there's the statement right there. Folks, she is Joanne G. Joanne, such a delight to talk to you. You sound great. Keep up the good work. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you again sometime, okay?
Take care.
All right, folks, Joanne G. And it is remarkable. And again, good afternoon, one and all. It is Juan. We're going to talk to Susie Yankee, chairwoman of the Rhode Island Republican Party. They had a noon press briefing. I was initially going to go and try to cover it, and then just to scheduling, we could not do that. But she's having they had a press briefing at the Rhode Island State House with State Senator Jessica De La Cruz just a short time ago. And the reason why this is in the news, I mean, that story in the Boston Globe where Amanda Milkovich, to her credit, she's a very good reporter, was out there. She's on Cranston Street. There is they're with a woman, and they have names, they have photos. Trisha Heeks of Providence. So you have these survivor advocate, and she's trying to talk to this woman, and you know, they let's see, she's been out here on and off for 3 years. She said she was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years, got depressed, started using drugs. Her children now live with the mother. So honestly, I think you should be able to do what you want with your own body. I think you should have that choice. I don't think it should be an illegal thing. Go to jail. Still, it's dangerous out here, she admitted. It's dangerous out here. She said she's adapted, but I see some girls who come out here and they get used and treated like blank. I always say get out while you can because Cranston Street will eat you alive. Ugh. She shivered. Cindy, the executive director, shrugged off her puff jacket placed over her shoulders. He glanced back at men watching from under the glare of a convenience store fluorescent light. And then the woman handed her a card. Call me anytime. If you're trying to get away from someone, call me. I'll come get you. Tucked the card away, thanked her for the brownie, bag of personal items, hurried back to where the men were waiting. Oh, goodness. Folks, it goes on. It is, but what is amazing are the progressives that are pushing it. The progressives. It's the progressive wing of this political co-op. And old man Craddock, I mean, that is, I can't, Attorney General Pina Nerona, I think they could have been a charge in there. There absolutely could have been a charge in there, but they decided not to charge him. We'll see if Chaz Kalenda comes out with any type of statement on that today. But that is, there's so many unanswered questions with that, with the fact that they are letting him go on this. I want to just see how the story starts with a man stared at cars passing slowly on Cranston Street as a woman leaned into the driver's side of a work van around the corner. Rows of tenements, people with shelter, a few women, aimless, alone. Boom, boom, boom. It's very dangerous. They beat you up, they choke you, they take your money, they throw you out of the car while it's still moving. And then these women that started this organization, the nonprofit Together with Love, they try to go out and help these in this particular story. It's all women. I understand that there are some men involved with it, but it's I don't remember. This is probably what I've seen the most damaging story to this political cooperative that I've seen written as of late, and only because so many of them are in favor of it, and they and want to have it passed in that way. But the Craddock thing, I mean, none of that makes sense. He just the thing that is the oddest about it is he started going in person, and then getting paid. Why would you go in person? Going inside, up the back steps, and then he would go there in person. That seems that not only does that sound odd, but even with the Attorney General Pina Nerona's office found it odd. So the state police wrapped up their investigation back in October, but they the Attorney General's office just wrapped it up. So for Governor McKee, now in fairness to Governor McKee, and folks, again, good afternoon. At 12:56, you're listening to the John DePietro Show on AM 1380 and 99.9 FM. This portion of our show is brought to you by Propane Plus. Remember, for heating or cooling, call Propane Plus today, 401-885-4209. 401-885-4209. Propane Plus, whether it's Rhode Island or Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, you can call them at 508-252-3359. 3 generations. They're available 24/7. They offer online billing, schedule a service delivery. All customers receive a free safety inspection. Propane Plus. They have a very easy to navigate website and residential commercial, and it's online at propaneplus.com. Call them today, Propane Plus. Folks, as always, visit the website, depetro.com and depetro.com, which is brought to you by the Centerdale Revival, comfort food and cocktails. I'll tell you, Shane does a tremendous job. What a great crew they have there. I was there just the other night. 2025 Smith Street in North Providence, Centerdale Revival. So right now at 12:57, we'll get you up to speed. That the report by Attorney General Peter Nerona is that's pretty remarkable, with some of the comments regarding some of the comments about in their investigation into Bud Craddock. Now, I also want to touch on, we started hearing yesterday, Maria Bartoloma has a Sunday show on Fox, and she had a guest on yesterday that started touting, they had a big story up or coming out on U.S. Commerce Department official Gina Raimondo cashing in on China. But here's the thing, in the story, and I don't know this Peter Schweitzer, but he promoted it yesterday, and I started hearing about it from people. But in this story, he says that she's worth $1.8 billion, this Peter Schweitzer. And then he references Forbes magazine, saying, according to an article in Forbes magazine, Raimondo and her husband are worth $1.8 billion. Now, that is the first time that I've ever seen that mentioned. However, if you go to the story in Forbes magazine, it says that her and her husband, Andy Moffat, have a value or personal, net worth of $10 million. So now listen, 10 million is a lot of money, right? But what I don't understand is, how does he come out with a story saying that she's roughly worth 1.8 billion, and he references a Forbes story, and then when you go to the Forbes story, it says that her and her husband have a net worth of 10 million. I don't understand this story at all. I mean, I'm going to wait to see if they correct it. She's worth roughly 1.8 billion based on her financial disclosure as reported by Forbes. But you go to the Forbes story that they reference, and it doesn't say 1.8 billion. It says that former Rhode Island Governor, now Commerce Secretary Raimondo, her and her husband, Andy Moffat, have a net worth of $10 million. So I don't know where they come up with that. How do you go from, well, anyway. All right, folks, we're going to Susie Yankee next hour, radio only, right here on the John DePietro Show.